Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of A Different Point of View. I'm KonateLilas, your host, and without further ado, let's get into today's topic. So today I want to talk about the midterm elections, and I want to talk about the red wave that never happened. And I think that the Republican Party needs to do a lot of self-reflection and a lot of self-inventory. I mean, here it is. You have a president that has the lowest approval rating of any president in 44 years, lower than that of Trump's, and even lower of that than George Bush Jr. And you still could not get the Senate. So Joe Biden was able to accomplish something regardless of how badly he's run the country. He was able to get control of the Senate during his midterm, something that hasn't happened in 20 years. So what is the message? How do we look at this? Here it is. We have super high inflation. People can barely afford to buy groceries. Gas is expensive. It went down. Now it's starting to go back up. So people can't afford to fill up their cars. Crime is out of control. Housing is ridiculous. The federal interest rate is above 7%. Which also has increased the rent market. So people can't buy homes, people can't afford to pay rent. So with all of that going on, you could not control the house. So people would rather be unsafe. I mean, the crime in New York City, I live in New York City, the crime here is on the level of the 1980s. It hasn't been this high since the 80s. So people would rather deal with high crime rate. People would rather be unsafe, not be able to buy food, not be able to put gas in their car, not be able to buy a home, not be able to pay rent, stuff that affects everybody. People would rather deal with that than deal with Donald Trump and a Republican agenda. That's how I'm looking at it. And when you look at it through that lens, that's scary. So the question is, what the heck happened? And how were Democrats able to stay off this red wave and still maintain control of the Senate? So I'm not a political analyst, but I do think a number of things happened. Number one, just mathematically, even if the Republicans ran their campaign better, ran better campaigns, had better quality candidates, the red wave that they were talking about still probably wouldn't have happened if we just look at it mathematically. So in the Senate, Democrats were only defending 12 seats. Republicans were defending 23 seats. So in order to discuss this red wave that they were talking about, they would have to have one, maintain all of their seats, even in swing states like Arizona, Pennsylvania, and Georgia. So they would have had to secure those states, and they would have had to have picked up more than half of the states that the Democrats were defending, and that wasn't going to happen. The society that we live in right now, it's way too partisan for that to even happen. So when they were talking about this red wave, I don't know if they put in those figures in those calculations. So let's start off with that first. Second of all, I think the Republicans kind of had an arrogance about them. I think they felt because Joe Biden's approval rating was so low that they were just going to just walk in and inherit both houses. And that didn't happen. Their messaging could have been better because they did a very good job at always pointing out what's wrong. That's wrong, and that's wrong, and you did this, and you did that, and inflation, and crime. And if you vote Democrat, there's gonna be a lot of crime. There's gonna be more inflation, and the problem is that they were very heavy on problem, but not so much on solution. Like anyone that listens to Republicans or watches Fox or watches any of the conservative channels or the right-wing channels, they got the message clear on what's wrong, but they didn't really get clear on how they were going to fix it. I didn't hear much of that at all. Yes, we have inflation. We had COVID. What are your ideas? How are you going to fix it? I didn't hear a lot of that. So from that perspective, their messaging should have been more balanced on problem and solution. Wasn't a lot of solution. The other thing about it, and this really, this did not work in Republicans' favor, and that was the whole abortion thing. The Democrats did a very good job of packaging abortion as a Republican issue and an issue that's decided on a federal level. When in actuality, it is an issue that is decided on a state level, which means that the Supreme Court never abandoned abortion. They just said, we're going to let it be an issue on the state level. So, but for whatever reason, people didn't get that idea. That message wasn't, and also, so women voters were very motivated to come out to the polls. And you're talking about, and you're not talking about some small population. You're talking about women. Women outnumber men in this country. So an entire population of women, probably across political lines, said, hey, I need to be able to make choices about my body. And it doesn't matter if I'm Republican or Democrat or right wing, left wing, and things of that nature. I think that one issue vote, there were a lot of one issue voters when it came to that. And that certainly did not help the Republicans. I think in a lot of ways that put the nail in a lot of Republicans' coffins especially when it came to the Senate. I also think that Republicans need to really start thinking about how they want to deal with Donald Trump. They have to figure out, is he more of an asset or is he more of a liability? And that has to be figured out, I guess, on a race-to-race situation. But in my opinion, it might be time to start getting off the Trump train or just really thinking about it. I mean, Trump, you know it's bad. You know it's bad when you're running a primary election, right? And the Democrats are hoping that they're facing a Trump-endorsed candidate in the general election. You know it's a problem. You know Trump is starting to become a liability because Democrats are now using the fact that you are a Trump-endorsed candidate. They're now using that as part of their campaigning. I've seen it all the time. Yes, this person, do you want more years of Donald Trump? This person was with Donald Trump. This person stood with Donald Trump. So the fact that you're a Trump-endorsed candidate, it works against you in a lot of ways. And I'll give you such a good example. let's look at what's going on in Georgia. Okay, right now in Georgia, there's a runoff between Herschel Walker and Raphael Warnock. Right now, but here's what's interesting. Right, you have two statewide races. Two. You have one for governor and one for senator. Normally, people just vote down ticket. Republican, 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 Republican. Democrat, 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 Democrat. That's what normally happens, right? Kemp won his governorship. He beat Stacey Abrams handedly, convincingly. Why didn't that transfer over into Herschel Walker? And the only thing that I can think of is because Herschel Walker is connected directly to Trump. So there are Republicans saying, Kemp, yes. Trump endorsed Herschel Walker? No. Could it be race? Could it be that he's a black man? And a lot of people that voted for Kemp did not want to vote for a black man? It could be that. It could be some of that. But it could also be that people are starting to stay away from Donald Trump. I think Republicans need to stop having conversations about rigged elections. That's not helping them. I think people are tired of hearing that. So there's a lot of rethinking and reshifting that Republicans are going to have to do. And again, they really need to start not only rethinking their strategy, but they have to really start rethinking Donald Trump. I mean, the guy is coming against people in his own party. I'm talking about staple people in his party, key figures. The arguing with Mitch McConnell, the coming after Ron DeSantis, the coming after Mike Pence. And I'm going to tell you something. Coming after Mike Pence, it says a lot about his character. This guy was with you from day one. He was your day one. He had your back, and you coming after him. You're coming after DeSantis. Man, you're even coming after your Candace Owens. You're coming after Candace Owens. I mean, you know how many times Candace Owens has been called a coon and an Uncle Tom? Do you know how much hatred and vitriol, I mean, deservingly so, but do you know how much hatred and vitriol Candace Owens has had behind Donald Trump? And you're coming at Candace Owens too? I don't know. There's a lot that the Republican Party has to really think about. So, those are my thoughts. I would love to hear yours. Please put your comments in the comment section. Check out the merch, African American. And once again, thank you for tuning into another episode of A Different Point of View. I'm KonateLilas, your host. Peace.